Okay. We're very blessed this evening to bring you one of our important elected officials to speak with us on the issue of Common Core. For those of you who don't know about Common Core, please prepare to be informed and frightened. We are not going to have a postcard presentation tonight. However, after the congressman is done speaking and we get back out in the lobby later this evening, that is our postcard project, is going to be all the topics that he's speaking on. So Terry Martin is not here this evening, but Tim Lentz is going to man that postcard table tonight. If you like what the good congressman has to say and you want to take a stand, please do join us on that postcard project. But here we go with State Representative Tim McMillin. He was elected to his third term in the Michigan House of Representatives in November 2012, and he represents the residents of Rochester, Rochester Hills, and part of Oakland Township. Mr. McMillin serves as chair of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and chairs the House Oversight Committee. He also serves on House Education, Financial Liability Reform, and Regulatory Reform Committees. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a very warm Tea Party welcome to State Representative Tom McMillin. Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I enjoy serving with Representative Daley. I see he's back there. We came in back in January of 2009 as freshmen, and we're in our final term, and it's been a real pleasure to serve with Kevin, and he's always been a good, solid conservative vote, and also your Senator Pavlo. I saw him today, and he said, "I hear you're in my neck of the woods," and so I told Kevin I had forgotten to tell Senator Pavlo, but I served with Phil as well in the freshman year, and he's doing a strong job, and we both served on the Education Committee freshman year, and I've been on there all 3 terms. I chaired it for a brief time back last session. And I also have a little tie to Lapeer. My daughter lives just next to Meyer, and so she and her husband live there. She's a massage therapist. I don't know exactly which location around here, but if you get massages, you might see Jessica. I also used to hang out up here a little bit during my Christian Coalition days. I ran the Christian Coalition in the mid-'90s, and there was an active group up here as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about Common Core. It really doesn't take a long time, so I asked, since you don't have your second speaker, if I could also share just some of the other items that are on the agenda that I've been dealing with that I think might be of interest to you as well. But the Common Core is really, I'll start out making it very simple. It's turning over our standards and what is taught in our schools to a national organization called the National Governors Association. So back in 2010, the State Board of Education decided, as part of the race to the top, where Obama said, here you can get all kinds of money, states, if you do certain things, and one of them was to get into the Common Core. 45 states jumped into it and decided to adopt these, but they didn't adopt it through legislatures. And the State Board of Education put us into the Common Core to some degree, but they don't have the authority, and that's what I'm battling right now, and so we can talk a little bit about that. But what the Common Core is really right now, it's math and English language standards. It says that whatever National Governor Association decides, they've copyrighted the Common Core. So we are forced to teach everything in it. We can teach 15% above it, but we have to teach everything in it. So I've even asked and sent formal letters and received formal replies from the superintendent, state superintendent, if we don't like a Common Core. As a matter of fact, let me back up. I have a bill to get us out of Common Core. And they had a hearing a few weeks ago in the legislature, and we brought in experts, national experts. Sandra Stotsky was the only academic educator that was on the validation committee for the Common Core. So they developed the Common Core, then they had a validation committee to say whether these are good standards or not. She refused to sign off on the standards because she said they were bad, on the English language standards. So the only academic on the math standards, he also refused to sign off on the standards because he said they were bad. English language, and I can go through a few things about what's wrong with it, but conceptually, I've always fought for local control. Who knows better what your child or your grandchild needs but the parent and the teacher at the local level? So back in the 90s, I remember going to hearings in Rochester with Senator Doug Carl and Gil Dinello fighting Michigan model because they wanted to take it to the state level. And I argued we need to keep, we need to make sure that the locals have the control. So not only are we at the state level, but now with Common Core, we have turned it over. So during the hearing on my bill to get us out of Common Core, we had experts showing how it's very bad. Senator Stotsky had shown that the standards in English language are very much weighted differently than what we do in regards to technical writing. So our kids under Common Core will know everything about President Obama's executive order and how to understand an executive order. They won't understand some of the deep reading and excellent literature that is taught currently. In math, the Fordham Institute, who supports Common Core, they say that, well, there's 38 states that have worse standards than Common Core in math. Well, we're one of the 12. Our standards are actually better, so adopting the Common Core in Michigan means that we have lower standards. As a matter of fact, the way that they've structured the Common Core, very few kids will even have the opportunity to take calculus because the trajectory and what is taught in the Common Core makes it so that it's a year behind what we are currently teaching here in Michigan when it comes to math. And so the experts made it clear. We had teachers come in and talk about how it's taking away local control. We had parents do the same thing. Then the opposition to my bill came up. One of the State Board of Education members, who I know quite well, she came up and told us why she thinks it's good to be in the Common Core. And then I asked her during question and answer, so what if we don't like a standard? What if a standard we feel is bad and is not helpful to our kids in Michigan? What happens? And she said, you know, that's a really good question. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. So here's somebody who voted to put us into the Common Core, and she couldn't tell us what happens to Michigan and what we would do if we disagreed with a standard and thought that it was deficient, that it was wrong, that it had embedded in it anti-Second Amendment and who knows what else could be in there. She said she didn't know what we would do. And then the Michigan Department of Education came up, and I said, so, and they were supporting Common Core, opposing my bill, and I said, so what if we decide we don't like a standard and we don't want to teach it here in Michigan? Will our kids get the answers wrong on the Smarter Balanced test, which is the test that's associated with the national test? And she said, yes, they'll get it wrong. And then she looked kind of weird. She realized what she just said. She said, oh, well, wait, I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. So, you know, it's clear that, that they either don't know or they weren't sure. So I engaged in some letter writing back and forth, formal questions and answers to the State Superintendent Flanagan, and he admitted to me, he said, our opportunity to impact Common Core standards has passed, and so if we don't like a standard, we can't change it. We will have to teach it in Michigan. You have to teach 100% of whatever the math and English language is. And just as an example, recently, actually today, we just passed out legislation, some folks in the UP and others that have areas, they wanted some flexibility in what's being taught in Michigan. We're not in the Common Core yet. It's supposed to be implemented in 2014-15. And so they want flexibility in the area of career technical. So there's kids that, you know, want to go into something different than college. You know, they don't want to go in there. And by the time they're in 11th grade, well, so we passed gave them some more flexibility in what they could teach, what they could learn, and still meet the standards in Michigan. Well, that debate does not happen with Common Core. We don't get to decide our own standards. We have to go knocking on the door of the National Governors Association and beg them, hey, would you mind changing the standard? We got kids that this does not help, that it's harmful for them. They'd be better served. Their parents and the teachers think that the children would be better served if you gave flexibility. Would you please do that? And by the way, you know, they'd have to change all 46 states in order to do that, or 45 states. And so no longer, and it's not open to the Open Meetings Act. It's not open to Freedom of Information Act. We have no idea the deliberations that might occur in deciding what the next standard is. So even if these standards were tremendous, tomorrow they could change. We would be in the Common Core if this goes forward. And right now, I'll tell you right now, I've got an amendment, not just my bill to get us out of the Common Core, but right now it's kind of stirring things up, and over the next 2 weeks we're finalizing the budget, $50 billion budget, and we can talk briefly about that in a little bit. But within it, I was able to put an amendment from the House budget that said the Michigan Department of Education is prohibited from spending a dime on implementing Common Core. And the leadership allowed me to keep that in there. That passed the House. The Senate had something a little different. They said that the MDE, and I didn't even ask them, they just did it on their own, MDE cannot develop Common Core standards. The problem with that is that we don't get to develop them anyway. It's done by the National Governors Association, private, national. They're funded by the federal government and Gates Foundation and some other foundations, which typically probably have a different worldview than we do. And so the Senate did something. They recognize there's a problem with Common Core. And so we're in the midst. In the next 2 weeks, we will be deciding whether that amendment stays in or not. And with that amendment, the legislature has never voted on turning over our standards to a national private entity. We've never voted on that in the legislature. And I believe that that's something that we should be voting on as your elected officials. Statutorily, we decide what the standards are. That's our purview, and the State Board of Education exceeded that authority and kind of put us in this trajectory unless somebody stood up like myself and said, wait a minute, we should be able to approve. So what my amendment does is says they can't spend a dime. Now, that brings them to the table. So they have to go to the legislators, convince them this is a good idea, and then we can vote 4, 5, or 6 months from now to take that out, the prohibition on. It's called a supplemental. You pass a supplemental bill to amend the budget, and we can take that sentence out that I've put in there. So, I mean, it's it's got support. But right now, the governor, and I guess they're not going to play the clip, but the governor yesterday, while he was in Michigan while Arne Duncan was in Michigan, you don't have to. I could just explain it that while Arne Duncan was in Michigan with the governor announced that he is supportive of the Common Core. Up until then, he has not been. He's been neutral. He's been waiting, and as a matter of fact, was to be meeting with him in the next week or so on this and to discuss it, try to persuade him. But apparently he thinks he's already made up his mind. Now, just because he said that he supports it, they still need to get the budget passed. And if I have enough state representatives that are standing with me and will demand that prohibition stay in there on the Common Core, then it will stay in there. And the Michigan Department of Education will be prohibited from implementing it statewide. Now, I did not put it in the school aid fund. The school aid fund is what we give all the local school districts. If they want to get into the Common Core and adopt it, some of them are, that's fine. They can get in it, they can decide they don't want it, but what I'm hearing, all the pushback from my amendment is there's a lot of the grassroots are very supportive. A lot of the educating communities, not all, there's some teachers and some superintendents that have said that they support what I'm doing. But you're hearing people say, well, we've spent money on this already. We've gone too far into this. We're planning, where the teachers are getting ready to teach this. We're buying the books that will align to the Common Core. Now, some will say, when they say Common Core, it's only standards. They say it's not curriculum. Why are you buying books that align to the Common Core if it has nothing to do with curriculum? They're buying books for the Common Core. And so the main pushback that I'm getting is we've spent money and we're planning for it already. So if we wait a year or 2 or 3, that argument gets even louder and even more problematic. Once you're in it, we're not going to get out of it. We've spent too much money. We've gone into this. We've invested it. And we're not going to be able to get out of it. Along with the Common Core is the smarter balanced testing, and that has some problems in and of itself as well. It's aligned to the Common Core. All the states that are adopting Common Core either are in Smarter Balance or there's another PARC, it's called. I can't remember what the acronym, but of the 46 states, half of them are in one, half in the other. They both are basically the same thing. And it's very problematic because it puts all the data into longitudinal lifetime databases. So, and there are states that are suing the Gates Foundation because all this data ends up going into the Gates Foundation with the identifiers, with the child, all the family information, all their information that's in there, is going to be part of the Smarter Balance. And quite frankly, what the Michigan Department of Education person told me when I asked if they're going to get it wrong on the test, they'll get it wrong on the test. The Smarter Balance is aligned to the Common Core, and so if we don't like a standard, whether in math, for example, there's standards in there. Not only are they behind a year from what we have, but the Common Core has adopted 3 different ways that you can multiply two-digit numbers. You can multiply them the way we've all been taught, but there's 2 other ways, and it's got matrix involved, and it's viewed by many people as very confusing, and it will only confuse our children, but that is what they're going to have to do. Not that they necessarily get the right answer, but that they know how to get 3 answers. And the answers may not necessarily be right, but can they figure out how to get 3 different answers, or 3 answers, or 3 different ways. And so this is the kind of things, but again, there are experts that say that they're problematic, and again, we will have no impact. We will not be able to change these standards. And so there's a national movement going on right now. It's really caught fire. Indiana has just pushed the pause button for a year and has decided that they are not going to be implementing it, and they're going to hold meetings around the state to determine what the citizens want. Imagine that. And there's in all states. Ohio just had meetings. There are 800 showing up, 500 showing up. There in Tennessee. There's 4 states that have said no to Common Core. And we have our own standards. Some of them are better. Some of them could improve. And I agree. We should look at our standards and see how we can improve them. But I want us to make those decisions. And so it's a little bit nebulous. I see a lot of puzzled faces. But really, when it gets down to it, what we're doing again is turning over our standards, and the superintendent agreed with me, to a national entity called the National Governors Association. It's not representative of anybody. There's not all the governors are part of it. They don't deliberate in public. It's not a representative entity. It's just it's a private national group that will decide what is taught in our schools. And if we disagree with the standards, we won't be able to push back. And as an example, something similar is happening on Tuesday. The State Board of Education is ready to vote on national science standards, next generation science standards that includes global warming as a fact, man-made global warming, they're giving the national standards to a private entity. We will not have any impact, be able to impact national standards. We will be forced to teach in any other worldview, but including global warming being a problem that must be addressed, and that we must give up freedom and money and everything else that goes along with what you see the national or the groups doing, pushing for these agendas. So that vote's coming up on Tuesday. We actually have a rally coming up Tuesday, so we've got a lot of people that are going to go to Lansing and try to protest that, but also encourage that my amendments stay in and that we get out of the Common Core. So that's basically Common Core. I can answer questions on that. I've got other issues. Again, since you don't have your other speaker, I can talk about drone legislation that I have, that I'm having hearings. I can talk about the budget a little bit and corporate welfare that we took out in the House, some FOIA reform. But we can talk about Common Core briefly if you'd like. Yes, sir.
And also, how does Common Core affect homeschooling? Does it have any effect on the homeschooling or anything?
Yeah, I mean, see, the problem with there are homeschooling companies that are aligning to the Common Core. There's Catholic schools that are in private schools that are saying they're going to align to the Common Core. Because as we go down this road, this is what is going to be expected. They're even talking about the ACT and SAT being aligned to the Common Core potentially. But it will have an impact as far as No Child Left Behind. It is a national impact on our education, so it's a nationalization. It's not, that was talking about metrics, which are fine. I mean, there's good areas to have metrics and make sure that we understand how our kids are learning. And I used to be a president of a charter school. I was on the board and volunteer. And a charter school, and we had what's called NWEA testing, and so I could tell you, what teacher was able to grow the children in that class 1 grade level, or couldn't get them to 1 grade level, the growth. I mean, there's plenty of assessments out there that do the measuring that we can decide to use. But once you've turned it over to a national entity that is being funded by the feds to a large degree and by large foundations that have a worldview that's likely not the same as ours. That is what they, that's the dream of those that love central planning and getting it to the national level. I just prefer to push it down to the local level. Yes, sir.
Who is this private group that set up the Common Core? Who are they?
Who's the private group? It's National Governors Association. It is a group that meets behind closed doors. It's a national entity. Like I said, they're funded by, if you look at their funders, Gates Foundation and others, that, they are a function of, they claim they want better education, but they want it at the national level. And, I get there's some business folks that like this idea because they say, we need to improve our standards. We need to be global. But, we're not global citizens. We are, we are United States citizens, but more than that, we don't want national curriculum. We don't want national standards. And so, it's an entity that is not elected, that has some ties to, Granholm was a part of the National Governors Association at the time when they adopted Common Core. And, I guess the main thing is that it's not us. It's a national entity that has, who knows what they really want. I mean, they can say they want better education. I don't know what the whole idea of turning over our standards to any national entity. I don't care if it's Rush Limbaugh's national entity. I don't want, I don't care because, I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. I don't know what those standards are going to be. And like Flanagan told me, they could change standards in the future. We may not like them. We don't like some of the standards now. We won't have any impact. We'll have to go hat in hand and beg them to change, and the likelihood of them changing and changing all 45 other states is pretty much nil. And
I have a corded microphone up here. You'd appreciate it if you'd raise your hand. And we have a corded microphone. We have a wireless there. This is your chance to really get a handle on what's going on, because if we lose our kids today, we've lost our country tomorrow. I just want to say, if I could, just a real quick clip from Michigan Republican Governor Rick Snyder is standing behind Common Core school standards despite attempts by his own party to block implementation of the National Education Initiative. Quote from him, "I think Common Core is a really important opportunity, and I think it's a good thing. Unfortunately, it's been too much about politics. Too many people in our country are looking to fight someone for the sake of fighting." This is it, folks. I mean, are we going to let our schools rate? I mean, you saw that clip from the lady on MSNBC. Your kids belong to the community. My children may be grown and gone from the home, but they never did belong to the community. They never will. So this is our one and only chance to get this taken care of. So ask all the questions you've got, please. And we have a question right here, Tim.
Hopefully I can remember what I was going to say. Years ago, we took the school board to court here in Lapeer County over 2 textbooks. One was the Holt Health book, and the other one was a civics book.
Right.
And we could not remove the textbooks from the school or the classroom. We had to go in and read them there in the library. We weren't allowed to take them home. We fought them. We went to the federal court in downtown Detroit, and both cases, I hired my own attorney because I went from the point it was a religious aspect that they were pushing. It was New Age. And now when you mention global, they have no intentions of just keeping it as a national education. They want an international. And you mentioned Bill Gates. He's a key player in that international. I believe because they're dumbing down the standards of the school and the classroom, are they growing international, I don't know, better word, drones for a workforce,
Right.
because they keep promising jobs for the future. I'd like to know what those jobs for the future are.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, like I said, I've been in the battling education issues for a long time. I remember school to work back in the Engler years. I fought that because, and I ask this question somewhat regularly in education, usually when business people, chamber comes up before the education, do you think that our education system is there to fulfill the needs of society or businesses? And that's, they traditionally realize that's not a good thing or that's not a good answer if they say yes. But, really, government has a bad track record of figuring out what is going to be good next year or the year after that, especially when you've got a slow-moving machine of a national entity. It is a dumbing down. And I had this bill last session, last year. The Heritage Foundation came in, Lindsay Burke, who opposes Common Core, and Heritage does as well. And she testified that Common Core is really, they talk about it being a floor, that we can go up from that, but what she sees and what she believes is going to happen and feels that it's natural is that it will become a ceiling, that this is going to be the highest we can go is common. And I was quoted recently as saying, we want exceptional kids, we don't want common kids. And so it's, I don't want to say that it's nefarious, but I wonder what their motives are. That's why I just want local control and certainly state control and not national. And so we know what's best for our kids.
I have a question back here, and then we'll get to you.
And I remember, was Dr. Lapeer? Is it Lapeer? Yeah, he was involved with that too. I remember that was the Christian Coalition days. Jack Lessner and that whole group, yeah.
Two quick questions. One, what is the people who support Common Core? What is their chief argument for why we should have it? And then also, is there federal funding tied to Common Core?
Yeah, there's not federal funding. There could have been Race to the Top, which is there was opportunity to get some money. Only about 4 or 5 states got it, and one of the prerequisites is getting into Common Core. So a lot of them, because of that money, they jumped into that. What's their main arguments is that we should have similar standards around the nation. So they say in Mississippi, a diploma doesn't mean the same as in Oregon or New York, and so the business community is frustrated that they want to know what these kids are going to be. They want to make sure that we're producing kids who can fulfill their jobs, and they say also that, and we can do that. I mean, I don't know, Mississippi could improve their standards. We can improve our standards. Maybe states have different needs and different ways that they want to, more local control, less local control. But, right now we got, before Common Core, we have 50 laboratories. That's what's great. That's one of the great things about America. And so when an education system is excelling, people can look at that and say, that's, what are they doing right that we should be doing? This takes all that innovation and ingenuity out because everybody's doing basically the same thing, and I think it's pretty scary. I ran last year and went to PTA meetings, and they said, "What?" I said, "Don't you find it kind of creepy that all the third graders are going to be taught the exact same thing around the nation?" Or, I mean, for the exact, I mean, and they're not deciding what's going to be taught. It's going to be a national entity that is making those decisions. They say that if you move from one state to another, shouldn't you know that they're teaching the same thing? I find that problematic because right now I don't necessarily, I'm on education. Things are getting, there's some excitement in differentiated learning because you got a kid in third grade, you got half of them, or maybe half of them understand it, a fourth of them are ahead and bored, and a fourth of them don't get it and are never going to catch up. I want my child to be taught where my child is taught, not necessarily where the class is being taught. And we're getting to where we can do that now a lot better. And so I want to make sure that that innovation is not stifled by just making sure that everybody's being taught the same thing or trying to. But again, good standards don't necessarily mean that there's going to be good outcomes. We've got good math standards, but the NAEP, which is the national test, is a very generic test, shows that we're not doing very well. So standards don't necessarily mean that you're going to do a good job anyway. Just will drive a lot of the content.
Sir, you stated that the state education department didn't have the authority to put us into the Common Core.
State Board of Education, right?
Correct. If that's the case, then why are we having to fight to eliminate it because it's never been legally adopted? Shouldn't the Attorney General or this thing be taken to the state Supreme Court and just say, look, it wasn't even done right? Why do we have to spend a lot of your time and things when we got some other issues? Not that this one isn't important. I totally stand against Common Core. But why are we having to fight this fight when it wasn't even done legitimately?
Well, because, in Lansing, things move, and it just gathers momentum and goes in a direction. And right now, we are adopting statewide, and if I were king, you might be right. If we had a governor that said we're not going to implement this, but the budget is how you affect what MDE does. Michigan Department of Education, will do what the State Board of Education, the one thing the State Board of Education really can do is hire the superintendent, state superintendent. They don't have any other real authority. We pass statutes that decide standards and curriculum, Michigan merit curriculum, things like that. But right now, to answer your question, they're all exercised about my amendment because they want to continue implementing it statewide and requiring statewide. And could the Attorney General take them to court? I'd take the state to court and sue. He represents the state, so he'd have to sue the state. There's been nobody to stand up to this. So that's why I say in Lansing, you just kind of move, things start moving, and unless somebody like myself stands up and says stop, it just keeps moving in that direction. And they're implementing it statewide. Once you have the test, this MDE is adopting the Smarter Balance test, which is aligned to the Common Core. So they teach to the test, and so they will be required to teach to the Smarter Balance testing that is being adopted as well. And that's why my amendment also says that they cannot spend a dime on implementing Smarter Balance testing or the Common Core. Back there.
Hi, my name's Roy. I understand that there's 61 pages of sort of intrusive information that they want to know. Some of the teachers have understood that, they say that they feel like they're information drones. They want to know what religion you're from. Another thing in it I've understood is that they want to do MRIs on all the children. They want face recognition. They want posture recognition. They also want to put a band, which would be kind of a forerunner to possibly a chip, all right, to where it's tracking devices. There were some cries about it somewhere out west. Some of the the parents were complaining about that, and I don't blame them. Can you expound a little more on some of the more intrusive things that you've seen out of that 61 pages?
You know, I'm not as familiar with the 61 pages. I know that, like I said, there's a lot of privacy data that the ACLU is suing some states because of the privacy data that's being required by the particular state and being turned over to the Gates Foundation. There are other states further along in implementation than we are, so we can actually watch and see what is happening, and I think you're probably talking about that. One of the more disturbing things about Smarter Balance is that I asked, again informally in writing, will parents, teachers, or legislators be able to see the questions on Smarter Balance? They said, no, you won't be allowed to. So, you know, yeah, that might be your answer, is that what they're being asked, we won't know. And so what they're being put into these databases, and I'm not tinfoil hat here, but and I'm not saying anybody else is too. I just know that when you've got these longitudinal databases where Bill Gates and other foundations think that the information is going to be helpful, who knows what's going to be put in there, and we should be able to have that authority. We turn that over with Smarter Balance and Common Core. We no longer have that authority. We can't even see them.
Okay, I've got a question right here, please.
It's not real clear in my thinking what Common Core encompasses. You mentioned math and English. Does Common Core address social issues at all?
Yeah, they're preparing the science standards and social studies standards. We know those are coming as well. They're probably smart about it because they know those will be the more controversial, so they wouldn't want to implement that first. But those standards are coming down on a nationalized level, and again, we won't have any impact on what is being taught. I mean, we won't be able to change what is being taught in those, and so yeah, it will encompass all the areas.
Did you say that Superintendent Wandry? Can you clarify that?
No, Flanagan, State Superintendent Flanagan.
Okay, I thought you didn't.
No,
you didn't
I haven't
mention
had
anything,
any communication
that conversation with him
right,
locally.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Representative McMillin, listen, first off, I want to thank you for being here. But just a couple things. There is an article that just came out, and it's kind of unique when you find yourself, the conservatives find themselves aligned with union presidents. And the president of the American Federation of Teachers just came out recently and is saying we need to put the brakes on Common Core. And again, that's the second biggest teachers union in the country. There is so much to this. This encompasses so much, and it gets so deep. But the best example that I can make is for a federal program. Everybody says that this starts out with just the best of intentions. They just want to gauge and assess, so everybody's looking at the same thing. Well, you guys all know and have experienced the federal school lunch program. We send our kids to school. We get lunches. I was at a meeting. My daughter attends Lapeer Community Schools, about 5,700 kids at this point, a large number of lunches. And we were talking to the director of the foods. They implemented a thing where they made a new salad. And in this salad, they added some chicken. They cut up some chicken and put this chicken into the salad. Because they did that, the federal government told them specifically they have to remove 2 nuggets from their chicken nugget thing throughout the district. If they don't do that, they can lose their funding. It starts off with the best of intentions, but if you go to, and anybody, it doesn't matter what district in this county you go to your elementary school, if you've got an elementary student or any student in school, ask them how they like the lunches. It is required that the vegetables and stuff have to be served to our kids. In the lunch lines, as you'll go up into the lunch lines, if they cannot not serve them these vegetables. The kids are pouring them into the garbage. We are creating millions of dollars of waste because of federal regulations. So this is a very important topic. I just wondered, do you see any similarities? Because it just seems like these federal programs, once they start, they never stop and they just get bigger.
Right. Well, let me address your first question. The AFT, American Federation of Teachers, they helped design Common Core. They don't like the testing portion. They asked to stop on the testing, and I can only surmise that, there is a portion of accountability when you have testing, and I think we can do our own testing, NWEA or other testing that we want that is not aligned with anything that we might have a problem with, and keep, we could change it if we don't like it. We have the MEEP right now. There's problems with that, but it's ours. It's not a national, and we can change that if we wanted. But the AFT, they want to put the pause button on the testing. They feel in areas they're just introducing it, and they are being told your teachers are going to be tested, the kids are going to be tested, and they're going to be evaluated on something that is just now coming in because they're just now buying the books. By the way, it doesn't affect the curriculum, but they are buying new books to align to the Common Core. But they're just buying those books and spending a lot of money, and they don't want the testing. So that was the pause button for that. But oh yeah, I mean I've been in government a little bit and of the best intentions. But when you've got a national entity, it's even worse. I prefer it at the local level. If you folks want to try new things and then you can change your mind later, you don't impact the other 99% of the schools. If you want to try something in the state, if you want to try something here. But another example in math, and I'm not a math professor, but as I understand it, Euclidean geometry, I don't know, is that any of the math people? I guess that's the standard geometry that we learned. Well, that's not in Common Core. They've got something new that has not been tested. It was tested in somewhere in Russia, parts of Russia, and it was decided it was bad. So this geometry, our kids will be guinea pigs when it comes to geometry because they're going to be taught a different way than has always been taught here in the United States. And these people that are in ivory towers think, hey, why don't we try this? This has got to be really good, and they stick it in the National Common Core curriculum, and everybody's learning it then, or not learning it, or learning it badly. But yeah, best of intentions. That's just it. I mean, again, like I said, if it was Rush Limbaugh and everybody else designing these, I wouldn't want it. I don't want to give away our standards that are taught in every one of our schools to a national entity that I don't know their motives and I don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. I mean, they're probably putting forward their best face now, knowing that this would be the opposition. I don't know what they want to do later. This is the best they got, and it's worse in math than we have. And in language, it's certainly got areas that Sandra Stotsky and other experts have said is very deficient and not good for comprehending and learning deep thought that our kids have learned, at least to some degree, up until now.
I would say that, my name is Jean Finch, that someone needs to look into who, you say it's National Governors Association and funded by Bill Gates.
And the federal government, right?
And the federal government.
Right.
To see who, are they Republicans or Democrats that are the main governors in the association. And in Lansing, it's infuriating to hear what you're saying, that why isn't there an uproar about someone trying to take over our educational rules here in Michigan? Why?
Well, I mean, the uproar is starting, and so, I mean, it's been building. Last budget, last year, I was able to get all references to Smarter Balance and Common Core out. I mean, I didn't prohibit. Now I went further this year and got a prohibition, but I got references to Smarter Balance out because I knew that we got to fight this, and it's just an education. I mean, right now, a lot of you folks are hearing it for the first time. It's somewhat, ubiquitous. I mean, it's hard to get your arms around. That's why I really fall back on the issue, and I am outraged. I don't know why there's not more outrage, and it's building right now. Why are we turning over our standards to a national entity? I mean, it's a very simple question, and when you call, your state rep or senator or whatever, just, say that we don't want to turn over our standards to a national entity where it's copyrighted, where we won't have an impact. We will not. Lansing, I don't know why we'll meet as an education committee. I mean, there'll be a few things we can do, but as far as some of the standards and what's taught, I think superintendents are frustrated because Lansing changed its standards. So, and I understand that is a problem. But the answer is not to get rid of them so somebody else is making those changes at a national level.
To piggyback the congressman's answer, Bill, maybe you can help me with this one. There is going to be a rally in Lansing. Is it the 14th of May? You
Right.
announced it today
Next Tuesday.
on email?
Yep.
Tuesday in Lansing. Do we have a link to that? Watch our website, your emails, your Facebook. It will give you all the goodies that you need to know about these rallies. There's going to be a lot of different tea parties that are going to be there with us. So definitely make that drive to Lansing next week if you can. If you ever stood for anything to help protect your own kids and grandkids and the future of our country, this might be one way to do it.
Right, and,
So-
and let me just say also that there's a lot of excitement because when Indiana has been pushing back, but then when the Michigan House said that we're defunding Common Core, well, now I heard from many other places that this is igniting other states to fight harder because, it's really a compounding effect that we're seeing nationally. It's exciting. I got a call from a Minnesota legislator and a Wisconsin. What can I do? What's the argument? I said, it's simple. You guys didn't vote on it, did you? No. Your state board probably put you, yeah. Well, just say that you ought to defund it until you decide it's a good thing, because I go to legislators, and there's hardly any that understand what it is in Lansing. Of the 148, there might be a few that have a slight understanding, but they really don't understand it. And I find that problematic.
Sir?
Yeah, it's on.
My name is Dan Austin. I heard you address, or was that you were asked about homeschoolers, but I didn't really get the answer I wanted to hear there. You were talking about charter schools, and what I want to know is what is the state's outlook on the homeschoolers? Is there a movement to try and shut them down?
Yeah, no. I mean, my daughter Jessica, who's here, she was homeschooled by her mom up here in Lapeer, and myself, but mainly her mom. They lived up on Carpenter for quite a while. And no, I mean, I'm a huge homeschool fan, and we fight it from time to time. There's a Democrat bill to get rid of or to require a lot of licensing, but Michigan is one of the better states in the nation for homeschooling, and you folks are very vigilant about that. So, but as far as Common Core, the thinking is that if this continues to build and we don't slow this down, the SAT and ACT get aligned to it. Colleges won't accept unless you're, depending on your AC and SAT and ACT. So homeschool curriculum, some of them are aligning to the Common Core already, and some are not. I think really, I mean, that's a different discussion. I think higher ed there's a bubble in higher ed that's about to break in college with what you see online. I mean, you can take 100 MIT courses for free right now. You can't get credit for them, but you could take, there's tons of free. Coursera, Uncollege, and edX are the three top ones now. I mean, the guy that's running Coursera is the guy who developed autonomous cars. He's a Stanford professor. He left and said, he offered a course when he was in Stanford, and he said he opened it for free online. He said he got 30,000 people sign up for it. So that was impressive. He said like 10,000 finished it, and and got the answers right. He said he realized at that point he could have charged him $1, and and been fine. And so his passion is to make sure that in 5 years there's a $100 master's degree. And I doubt that he will fail. I don't think he's going to fail. And so I think higher ed is there's a bubble about to burst in that whole area. And technology is, I mean, and there's a lot of changes at the local level as well with blended learning. You can learn some things online. You need teachers, but there's just you can do a lot of differentiated learning because you can't have a Chinese teacher teaching Chinese and French and Spanish, but you can get online and offer those courses to 2 kids in Chinese and 3 in French and 2 in Spanish, and you can really differentiate. So it's a revolution going, and here we're going to send our kids into something common and eliminate a lot of that ingenuity and a lot of that, a lot of the things that could happen in a freer society.
Is there a place we can go
Well, it sounds like your Tea Party group is connected. We've got Facebook pages, Stop Michigan Common Core, I think, if you search that on Facebook. Yeah, I mean, I think you sound like you got a really good group here that probably has the information they're kicking out. I guess I'm not going to get to all those other fun things, drones and stuff like that, but that's all right.
Have any school districts, public, private, charter, in state, already implemented this or started implementing it?
Oh, yeah. No, there are. I think Traverse City has, to some degree. I mean, they're just starting. They're beginning at the local level, and they can keep doing it. I mean, they think they're doing it because they're going to be required to. But if it's a good thing for them, or if they want to take this part of it, again, it's copyrighted, so I don't think they can use it and take things out, because there'd be copyright violations. But I'm not opposed to local control. I mean, if a local community wants to do Common Core, that's fine with me. I think that they'd be a lot easier. I guess they could get out of it a lot easier. And so there are some that are starting to, at the very beginning, buying the textbooks to align their curriculum to the Common Core. And the Smarter Balance testing, I think, is going to start, but it hasn't yet.
Representative, how do you get out? Assuming that you bought textbooks and things, but you continue to buy those over time. So is there anything that prevents you from opting back out?
A local, you mean, or a state? As a state, I think it would be extremely difficult. I mean, once you're into the testing, I mean, one of the other problems with switching testing, we have testing and measuring to some degree now with the MEP. It's not great, but we do have a history that we can see what's going on. That all starts over. So we no longer, as far as accountability and understanding growth and things like that, we start from zero when you have a new testing mechanism, the Smarter Balance. But how you get out, yeah, I mean, at the local level, again, you could decide that you'd get out, and it would cost money. I mean, you would have spent money, and that's the argument. That's why it's going to get worse. My job, anybody that wants to get the state out, next year it's going to be, 100 more districts that are in it, and 2 years, and once it's required in 14-15, everybody's going to be in it. And so people are going to say, how do we get out? I mean, we can't, we spent all this money, we spent all this time, we can't get out. We may not like that standard. There are things that are creeping in that, we were worried about, but is it really that bad that we're going to get we're going to remove all the textbooks and have a new testing, a new database, or, new history of growth and measurement? It's just going to get harder. So we stand at the precipice now, I believe, where you either do it this year or we're not going to get out.
I think everything you said is bad enough, but it's a sugarcoating of what I've read. It's the 61 pages the gentleman in the back mentioned. It is scary stuff, and it is the facial recognition on the kids. It's complete data mining, and it takes away the parents' rights, and I think that's what we need to research.
Sure.
And that stuff is government information. It's on the website. You can read it, and that's the scary part. What you've said is bad enough, but that's an absolute sugarcoating from what I've read.
Okay. I appreciate that. I learn things every day.
If you want to take over a nation, start with its youth.
Yeah.
Go back and look over those nations that have done terrible things. Take over their youth. And this looks like an effort to do just that.
Right. No, you're right.
Hi, my name is Millie Sull. I've been to a lot of these meetings of this type over the last 20 years or so. I support local and state control. I support our Bill of Rights and our Constitution. We had taxation without representation. We need to have education for our children with representation.
Right.
As I look around, I see the same types of people that I've seen all along. Most of us are grandparents. Maybe some of us even have great grandchildren here. I'm a grandmother. I don't see the young people. How are you reaching the young parents that have children in the schools today? I don't see them here. I know they're busy. I know they're working, both husband and wife, mother, father. And we need to reach those younger people and tell them that we are not a marginalized group like they have been trying to show us to be. We just love our country, and we want to keep our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and we want our children to be educated. And I want you to speak to why we aren't reaching out to that demographic, the mothers and fathers. And I would like to ask why we aren't teaching our children handwriting anymore. I think that's the basis of learning. If they can't handwrite, how are they going to do it in the future if we don't have the technology that they are using all the time?
Yeah. To your point on where are the young ones, I mean, in Lansing, let me just start with this. In Lansing today, there was a hearing on the Senate. I don't want to get in too deep into the weeds, but the Senate version came over in the budget, and so the House Education Subcommittee on Appropriations had a meeting, and they were going to zero out the budget, some technical stuff, but we sent it to conference committee. But at that committee, there were secondary superintendents. The organization showed up complaining about my amendment and supporting Common Core, and they had a stack of cards and a lot of people there. They are paid with our tax dollars, and it's the bureaucracy that has the time. We all have jobs, and the parents, like you said, they got kids. Hopefully some of them will show up on Tuesday. I think politicians make a bad error assuming that just because these taxpayer-funded employees show up and lobby us all the time, that's what everybody thinks. But, I mean, it's a battle. Like I said, I've been fighting education battles for 20 years. And we have a couple ladies. I'm telling you, there's two ladies, Debbie DeBacker and Melanie Curtis, who are going all around the state. These two ladies, I think their kids are grown, and they are, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't, my amendment probably wouldn't have gotten in there. They are out there educating and getting those 7 or 8 state reps who are standing with me demanding that this prohibition stay in the budget. And I've got young kids. I can't be around across the state. This is one of the few times I actually am allowed to be not at home in the evening. My wife said I could be here, but I mean, we have lives, but we're up against an educational bureaucracy that has 40 hours or hours a week that we pay for, so they have time to drive and lobby and call, and that's why when groups show up of actual just citizens at a rally on Tuesday, that really speaks volumes. Politicians know these are not government employees. We get plenty of those, that show up in hundreds or thousands. But when parents show up, they realize these people took time off, and if it's only a couple hundred, they know that there's probably, that's 10 times as many or 20 times. They represent tons more than what we've seen from government employees that might have that time to go and lobby us. So it is frustrating, like you said. And where's the outrage? That's why I'm here. That's why I took that time away from my family tonight.
Congressman, we are a little bit ahead of schedule since we did lack that one speaker tonight. We just had a little mini talk in the back, and we're wondering if you could give us maybe about 5-10 minutes about the drones, because that's something that is really important to all of us as well. And then if you'll have time, will you be here after the meeting so people can maybe come see you for a minute?
Yeah,
would your wife let you stay a minute?
Yeah, I talked to her on the way here.
What's your curfew?
I told her I'd get out, quickly, and so she knows what that sometimes means, and sometimes doesn't. I'll try to stick around, but I do need to get home.
But can you give us a little heads up
drones.
On what you got?
Yeah, so around the state, 35 states or so have drone legislation to limit to put limits. And my legislation, again, I worked with the ACLU. I was quoted yesterday in Politico. I don't know if any of you know Politico, but it's a big national website. Well, mine was the lead article was States Take on Drones, and I was the main one quoted in there from legislators. And I said, you know, growing up, I was quoted as saying the ACLU was always the evil people when I was growing up. But on a few things, and particularly in privacy areas and things like drones, I worked with them, their national office. And, you know, my drone legislation would say law enforcement needs a warrant or imminent danger, a barricaded gunman or a fire or something like that they could use it. But other than that, we don't want a bunch of drones flying around watching us. I just had a meeting with the head of the chiefs of police, the organization today, and sheriffs and state police, and you know, they want to have unfettered ability. The FAA said that by the end of the decade, they believe 10,000 drones will be in our skies. And we're not talking about the big airplanes. Some of them are laptop size. They're small, but they have cameras. They can see extremely well. And so, you know, it's just, where are they? What are they doing? I've got, my bill says that they can use, there's legitimate uses that would probably work out, but they can't have weapons on them, and they have a problem with that. So they, you know, some of them are saying that we want to be able to have weapons. You know, it would require that any information they obtain unauthorized has to be destroyed within 24 hours. And it puts penalties if they're abusing it. If you know, they decide to fly it over their ex-wife's house to see what's going on and things like that, there'd be penalties for doing things unauthorized, and there'd be a lot of reporting so that we can understand how they're using these drones, and making sure that there's penalties if they don't report properly as well. And so it's really, you know, we're seeing that the FAA is starting to approve them in states, and that's why you see the states starting to try to frame the issue and make sure that we don't have drones flying all. I mean, some of these drones are the size of a hummingbird. I mean, they are small, and you wouldn't know. And, you know, we just want to know if law enforcement particularly, I think other non-law enforcement bills will probably be coming as well, but that's what my legislation had a hearing. Law enforcement's not too happy about it. Other folks are, and you know, we're trying to just set the table so they understand in certain areas. That's fine, but other areas, you know, we don't, you know, just flying around watching and looking for stuff. That's not what we want being done. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a national, yeah, I think it's a federal drone testing out there. My legislation, we can't deal with federal drones. So, I mean, we're dealing with state and local drones. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, yeah, sure. And let me just say one other thing in the bill would be that the local government, you know, if your city police wants to use it, you'd have to get specific vote for every drone that they'd want to buy. Would be a public meeting, and they have to get approval by the city council. But, you know, some of them are saying, look, we don't have enough money. What are you talking about? We're not going to spend money on drones. Well, there's, you know, Oakland County Sheriff bought a $300 drone. I mean, it crashed the first time he used it. But nonetheless, the technology is such that it's coming down quickly. And also they can get the federal Homeland Security grants. And so around the nation we're seeing Homeland Security giving grants for these kind of things. And, again, we're just trying to frame it so that we don't, they're not buzzing everywhere and watching us. It really puts a chilling effect on citizens' freedom and activity if you think that if they could be out there just watching you. And so I told them, look, I think that I'm helping you guys because, if we frame it and make it clear, here are the rules and there's strong penalties if you do wrong, well, then people aren't worried. I mean, they should be less worried that you're out there doing something if they truly believe that there's going to be consequences if they're doing it wrong and just out there looking for stuff. Right. Right. Well, the price, what is it? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance or something like that is the quote. I mean, I could not get legislation that says if you have a barricaded gunman, you can't fly it up there to make sure that, it would save lives and, it wouldn't pass. I'm not sure I can get this passed, to be honest with you. It's going to be quite a battle. Yeah.
We have time for like one or two more questions. I did have a question passed to me that said, can we get the names of your supporters in Lansing so that we can email them? Do you have anybody?
My supporters.
What supporters did you mean, Gene?
Oh, the state reps?
Other representatives?
Yeah, I'd rather not disclose. I mean, I need to make sure because there's folks that, I need you to encourage the ones that aren't. So just encourage them all. I mean, anybody that you have, just say, make sure that the budget does not get passed unless there's a prohibition on Common Core. And by the way, it makes sense because you guys have never voted on it, so you ought to at least vote on it. Put it in there, and you can always vote to take it out if they persuade you. I mean, then you're going to have a vote. It'll be on record. So it's just very common sense.
Do you have a Facebook page set up?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, Facebook, just
That's
look me up.
Another way you guys can continue to keep informed. One or two more questions. Anybody? Or are we going to wrap it up for the evening?
Yeah, go ahead.
Roy?
One.
Oh.
Yeah, there's not right now, and that may come in the future, but there's nothing for private drones. Last one.
Yeah, Rick Perry out of Texas, he kicked out Common Core out of there.
Yep.
And they had already had a Plan B in effect, and they moved in with another program called C-Scope right behind it. So they are relentless that they're going to push this through, and they're going to slither in other ways. Do you know of any other names of anything that we should,
Well, yeah, C-Scope, but at least they're going to pass it. I mean, they're going to be the ones deciding whether it should go in or go out. So they're wrestling with that. They can change that program. They have a really good school board of education because it's not elected statewide. They elect them in districts. And I've got legislation to do that. Or I had it last session. I'll be introducing it this session. Once you're in districts, you get more conservatives on the State Board of Education. So, yeah, I'm a little familiar with C-Scope, but at least it's not. It would be their own. I mean, there's not a bunch of states involved with that. It's Texas, and they're wrestling with whether they want to go with that or something else. That's the debate we ought to have. What do we want? But yeah, I've heard some bad things about that, and I think conservatives are rising up. With Common Core, they wouldn't be able to. They'd be knocking on the door of the NGA saying, we don't like this, please don't do it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Congressman McMillin. We appreciate you being here very much, and thank you for staying and speaking as long as you did. Real quick, watch, again, like we said, website, Facebook, emails, for further information on the rally in Lansing pertaining to Common Core, which is coming up next week. So please keep a sharp eye on that.